Today on Substance Stories, we're going to be talking about slot machines and how to overcome the gambling addiction from them. Today I want to talk about slot machines, or as they're known in Australia, Pokies machines, or the one-arm bandit. So they are absolutely Australia's blight. So it used to be that half of all the Pokies machines in the world were in the state of New South Wales, thanks to, unfortunately, a large amount of building of Pokie machines in the last 10 years. It's only about a fifth of all the Pokie machines in the world are in the country of Australia. But that is quite remarkable, as Australia has 0.33% of the world's population. So we obviously have a lot more slot machines than anywhere else in the world per person. And a slot machine that's paying out a good wage in an impoverished part of Australia takes about $1 million a year, which is money that those areas do not have. So how did we get here, and what do we do about it? Well, we got here because Pokies machines, as you'll see in the old-fashioned Bond movies, were not that enticing. They were just sort of lacking all the lights and all the colours and all the whiz-bang. But then in the 70s and 80s, a company in Australia called Aristocrat managed to pair complicated psychology, lights, and feeling like you're almost there, giving us sort of rewards that our brains cannot predict, and absolutely entrance the brain. And it turned what was sort of a somewhat addictive gambling machine into a super brain hijacking addictive gambling machine. And then obviously it spread to Australia and the world, and these guys made a lot of money. Good on them. So Pokies machines pay out a certain amount over time on the dollar, and that is actually legislated. So depending on what county, state, country you're in, it'll actually say how much the Pokies machine pays out. And it's usually between 80 cents to 90 cents on the dollar, which means that it is a beautiful taxation system. If I sit there and put in money and put in money and put in money, I'll lose 10 to 20% of my money over time very consistently. So you cannot win at the Pokies. This is part of the deal. But everyone knows that. And I think this is what's miscommunicated often when people talk about these machines, is that they think that the people playing them want to win. What they want is the feeling of being in front of the machine. People talk about the flow state in sport, when we reach that period where we're not thinking. And that's what people that are addicted to Pokies feel. They feel that time at the machine. It's that distraction, it's that relief from the outside world. And that is what Pokies do. They're a gambling drug like any other. They just access our brain's reward system in a different way. So what do we do about Pokies in Australia? Well, we could legislate to stop them. WA doesn't allow Pokies in pubs and clubs. In fact, most of the world doesn't allow Pokies in pubs and clubs. So it's very odd that we do. But unfortunately, the gambling lobby and the sports clubs really, really love Pokies because they keep them wealthy. What do you do if you're the individual? Well, the simplest thing would be to not do it. I understand that can be hard. So then we can do stuff like we can set limits. We can make sure that we don't ever take more money out. We can make deals with our friends and family, say, oh, I'm going to pay $50 today or $20 today, and that's all. We can, when we notice that our gambling is getting bad, we can reach out for help. We can go and attend Gamblers Anonymous. There's free gambling support services in Australia, which you can call and access free counselling, financial advice. We can organise for our work. When you sign up for a new job, you have to fill out all those boring forms, and they say, what bank account would you like to be paid in? You can actually list several bank accounts. Well, you can arrange for one of those bank accounts to be a bank account you have no access to, whether it's it could be your partner's bank account that you don't have access to, or it could be a term deposit account that, again, so you don't have access to it, unless you have to give them a year's warning or something like that. And then that way you have savings, which is the biggest thing if you have a gambling addiction, is that lack of savings. And ultimately, you could also write to your local MP and tell them that you think they're a corrupt, awful person and that they should do something about gambling, because it's pretty outstanding that Australia has never done anything about gambling. But I hope, if you are struggling with gambling, or you know someone that's struggling with gambling, that you do feel able to talk about it. Because I think one of the things that is so awful about this is the shame we feel about something that's not our fault, an illness caused by unfair circumstances and fueled by companies that don't mind profiting off other people's misery. So if you are feeling that, try and remove that shame, try and seek out for help, try to talk about the struggles you are. That's the only way things are going to get better. I hope this has been helpful. Thanks for listening.